You ever notice how the easiest thing in the world to create is an excuse? You don't need resources. You don't need money. You don't even need help. Though, all you need is a reason not to do something, and your mind will manufacture one instantly. I'm too tired. I don't have the time. I'm not ready yet. I don't have the right connections. Excuses are cheap. They're easy. And that's why so many people live their entire lives surrounded by them, never realizing those excuses have become the walls of the prison they built for themselves. But let's get something straight. An excuse is not the truth. It feels true. It sounds true. But really, it's a comfortable lie. And the reason we fall for it is simple. The weakest. Excuses protect us from the discomfort of responsibility. They protect us from facing the reality that maybe, just maybe, the only thing standing in our way isn't a lack of opportunity, but a lack of action. See, your brain is hardwired to keep you safe. That's survival instinct. Thousands of years ago, if something looked difficult, risky, or uncomfortable, your mind told you, don't do it. Stay in the cave. Because back then, danger was real. Going out could mean getting eaten by a lion. Today, there are no lions. The danger isn't survival anymore. It's embarrassment, failure, rejection, looking foolish. But the brain reacts the same way. It gives you a story, an excuse that keeps you from stepping into the unknown. And the problem is, when you start to believe those stories, you start living smaller. You convince yourself that you can't go to the gym because you don't have time, when in reality, you binge 2 hours on social media every night. You say you can't start that business because you don't have the money, but you never tried learning how to start small with what you do have. You tell yourself you can't find the right relationship because there are no good people out there. But really, you've stopped doing the work on yourself that would attract the right person in the first place. Excuses shrink your world until your dreams no longer fit inside it. Now here's the thing. Usually the weakest. The reason excuses feel so convincing is because they're built with just enough truth to fool you. That's what makes them dangerous. An excuse always has a little evidence attached to it. Maybe you don't have a lot of money right now. Maybe you really are busy. Maybe you really did have a tough past. That part may be true. But the leap we make, the lie we swallow, is when we use those facts as a reason to stop moving forward. That's the difference. Facts describe the situation. Excuses decide the outcome. Think about it. Some of the greatest people who ever lived had every excuse in the world not to succeed. Oprah Winfrey was born into poverty, abused as a child, told she wasn't good enough for television. She had every reason to quit. But she refused the excuse. Steve Jobs was adopted, dropped out of college, got fired from the company he started. He could have given up, but he refused the excuse. Nelson Mandela sat in prison for 27 years. 27 years! If anyone had the right to say, life is unfair, I can't do anything, it was him. He came out stronger, and he led a nation. The excuses don't hold power over people who are committed to living without them. So, ask yourself, do you want to keep lying to yourself? Or do you want to start living the truth? Because make no mistake, every excuse you cling to is costing you something. Time, opportunity, relationships, fulfillment. Usually the weakest? Every day your excuses is a day you don't get back. And let me tell you something. Excuses are seductive. They whisper in your ear. It's okay. You can try tomorrow. But tomorrow is not guaranteed. Tomorrow is not promised. All you have is today. And the longer you wait, the heavier those excuses get. Pretty soon, they're not just excuses anymore. They become your identity. You stop saying, I didn't do it because, and start saying, I can't do it. That's when the lie becomes your truth. And that's when life passes you by. But here's the good news. You can kill your excuses. You can decide today that you're done negotiating with your limitations. You can choose to stop giving yourself a way out and start giving yourself a way forward. And it starts with catching yourself in the act. The next time you hear yourself say, I can't, or I don't have, stop. Ask yourself, is this a fact? Is this just a story I'm telling myself? 9 times out of 10, you'll find it's nothing more than fear wearing a mask. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Weakest. Life will never stop giving you reasons to quit. There will always be something, some struggle, some setback, some disadvantage. But you get to decide whether you turn that into fuel or into an excuse. That's your power. That's your responsibility. So, if you remember nothing else from this moment, remember this: excuses are nothing but comfortable lies, and the longer you keep them around, the more uncomfortable your life will become. Kill your excuses before they kill your potential. You know what amazes me? The way we as people can argue ourselves out of progress better than any lawyer could argue a case in court. We justify everything. We justify why we're not where we want to be. We justify why we can't make a move right now. We justify why we're waiting for the right time. And if we're honest, we've all done it. I'm not ready yet. I need to learn more first. I need to get everything perfect before I start. And in the moment, those reasons sound so logical. They sound so, but you know what they really are? Elegant excuses. The truth is, justification is just another flavor of procrastination. It looks more sophisticated It feels more respectable, plain excuse, but at the end of the day, it leads you to the same place. Nowhere, the longer you live in the world of justification, the longer you delay stepping into the world of action. Let me break it down like this. Nothing in your life changes until you move. You can think about it. You can pray about it. You can talk about it. You can journal about it. But until you act, you're standing still. The great tragedy is most people live their whole lives in that space between knowing and doing. They know what they should do. They know what the right move is. They even know the steps. But because they're stuck justifying why now isn't the time, they never do it. Philosophers like William James, the father of modern psychology, said, "Action may not always bring happiness, but there is no happiness without action." That's deep, and it's true, because here's the thing: clarity doesn't come before action. It comes because of action. People think, once I figure everything out, then I'll take the leap. But the reality is, you figure it out while you're leaping. Progress is messy. Growth is uncomfortable. And if you wait for perfection, you'll be waiting for the rest of your life. Think about a baby learning to walk. They don't sit in the crib calculating the physics of balance. They don't study YouTube videos on gait and posture. They just get up, wobble, fall, get up again, and eventually they're running. But as adults, we lose that courage to act without overthinking. We replace it with justifications. We convince ourselves we're being strategic when really we're being scared. And fear disguised as logic is one of the most dangerous traps you can ever fall into. Let me get real with you. Life is not impressed by your reasons. Life only responds to your results. You can tell the world all day why you didn't take that chance, why you didn't make that move, why you didn't chase that dream, but the fact remains you didn't. And the thing about life is, it doesn't hand out rewards for intentions. It rewards execution. I've met so many people who say, "I had that idea years ago," and they might be telling the truth. But guess what? Somebody else acted on it. Somebody else took the risk. Somebody else stepped into the arena. And they're the one living the reality that the other person only talked about. That's the brutal difference between action and justification. One builds legacies, the other builds regrets. Now, let's go a little deeper into the psychology of it. Human beings are wired with what psychologists call the intention behavior gap. That's the space between what we plan to do and what we actually do. Most people never cross that gap. Why? Because it's easier to protect the image of ourselves in our minds. The image of someone who could succeed, than to actually test that image in the real world. The weakest If you stay in justification, you never have to face the possibility of failing. But you also never give yourself the chance to succeed. Let me put it another way, action is risk, yes. But inaction is guaranteed failure. At least when you move, you've got a chance. When you sit still, when you justify, you've already lost by default. There's also something powerful that happens once you start acting. Momentum. See, the first step is always the hardest. That's where fear, doubt, and justification live. But once you take that step, no matter how small, something shifts inside you. Your brain goes, oh, we're actually doing this. And that energy creates more energy. Suddenly, one step becomes two, two becomes 10, and before you know it, you're building momentum. But none of that happens if you keep sitting in justification. Weakest. None of that happens if you keep telling yourself you'll do it later, when things are better, when life is easier, when the stars align. Let me tell you something, the stars never align. There will never be a perfect time. There will never be a season in life where all the obstacles are gone, all the conditions are ideal, and all the paths are clear. That's not real life. Real life is messy, unpredictable, full of setbacks. The only people who win are the ones who act anyway. History proves this over and over. Think about the Wright brothers. They weren't the most educated. They weren't wealthy. They weren't even the only ones trying to figure out flight. But what separated them from everybody else was action. While others were writing papers and debating theories, the Wright brothers were out in the fields, building and crashing and building again. And because they acted, they made history. Or take Thomas Edison. They say he failed over 1,000 times trying to invent the light bulb. Now imagine if he had justified quitting after attempt number 20, or number 100, or number 999. The world would be a different place. Edison's greatness wasn't in his idea. It was in his refusal to let justification stop his action. And that's the truth for you too. Your breakthrough isn't hiding in another plan, another book, another excuse dressed up as logic. It's hiding on the other side of action. Let's talk philosophy for a second. The ancient Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they had this principle that still holds weight today. They believed you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. And how do you respond? Not with words, not with justifications, but with action. When life knocks you down, excuses won't get you back up. Explanations won't move you forward. Only action will. And let's not forget the spiritual side. Faith without works is dead. You can have all the belief in the world, but if it doesn't show up in action, it's powerless. That applies in your career, your health, your relationships, your dreams. So I'll ask you this: where in your life have you been justifying instead of acting? Where have you been telling yourself stories instead of taking steps? Maybe it's that business you've been dreaming about. Maybe it's your health, that gym membership you keep paying for but never use. Maybe it's that conversation you know you need to have with someone, but you keep avoiding it. Ask yourself, how much longer am I willing to live in justification before I finally choose action? Because here's the reality. You don't need another plan. You don't need another pep talk. You don't need to get ready. You are ready. You've been ready. The only thing missing is movement. And yes, when you act, you will stumble. You will fall. You will fail. But failure in motion is infinitely better than failure in stillness. Because failure in motion teaches. It sharpens you, grows you, prepares you. Justification teaches you nothing. It only keeps you safe, stuck, and small. So if you take one thing from this point, let it be this: stop trying to justify your way to success. You can't. Success doesn't come from explanations. It comes from execution. Action beats justification every single time. Stop waiting. Stop debating. Stop justifying. Start doing. Because at the end of your life, you will not be measured by what you intended to do, but by what you actually did. So move. Today, not tomorrow. Now, not later. Don't explain. Act. When I say discipline is freedom, most people look at me sideways, the weakest. Because the way we've been trained to think about discipline, it sounds like the opposite of freedom. Discipline sounds like rules, restrictions, routines. Freedom sounds doing whatever you want, whenever you want. So how in the world can the two be the same thing? Here's the truth. The freedom you want in life, the freedom to live on your terms, to succeed at your goals, to walk in confidence, can only be earned through discipline. Without discipline, you're not free. You're trapped. You're trapped by your impulses, by your moods, by your excuses. You think you're in control, but really, your lack of discipline is controlling you. Let's get real about it. The person who eats whatever they feel like, whenever they feel like, might think they're free. But years later, when the doctor says they've got diabetes, high blood pressure, and a list of medications to take every day just to survive, that's not freedom. That's bondage. The person who spends every dollar they make because they deserve to enjoy life might feel free in the moment. But when the rent comes due, or the car breaks down, or retirement comes around, and they've got nothing, suddenly they realize they weren't free. They were slaves to their spending habits. Discipline feels restrictive in the short term, but it creates possibilities in the long term. That's the paradox. the chains of discipline that you so much lighter than the chains of regret. Think about any great person you admire, athletes, entrepreneurs, leaders, artists. What do they all have in common? Discipline. Michael Jordan didn't become Michael Jordan just because he had talent. Talent is common. Discipline is rare. He was the first in the gym, the last to leave, practicing shots that most of us wouldn't even think about because we'd get bored after 10 minutes. That's why he's a legend. Steve Jobs didn't create Apple by sleeping in late and waiting for inspiration to hit. He was obsessed with his craft, disciplined about the details, relentless about the pursuit of excellence. Oprah didn't build her empire by showing up when she felt like it. She showed up consistently, day after day, even when the cameras weren't rolling, even when the odds were stacked against her. Discipline is the bridge between vision and reality. And here's the psychological side of it. Discipline isn't just about forcing yourself to do hard things. It's about training your brain to stop negotiating with weakness. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, wake up when the alarm goes off, finishing the project you said you'd finish, sticking to the workout you planned, you build trust with yourself, and that trust becomes confidence. Most people think confidence comes from talent or personality. No. Real confidence comes from discipline. It comes from knowing deep down, I can rely on me. See, when you lack discipline, you're not just breaking promises to the world, you're breaking promises to yourself. And nothing erodes self-respect faster than lying to yourself over and over again. But when you build discipline, when you do what you say you're going to do, even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it, you create a foundation of trust that nobody can take away. That is freedom. Let's take it deeper. The philosopher Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Discipline isn't about one big moment. It's about consistency. It's about who you are becoming through small daily actions. When you practice discipline, you're shaping your character. You're literally reprogramming your brain to prefer what serves you over what sabotages you. But here's the part people miss. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is love. It's self-respect in action. Think about a parent who disciplines their child. They don't do it to be mean. They do it to protect them, to guide them, to prepare them for life. In the same way, when you discipline yourself, you're protecting your future self from pain. You're guiding your present self toward growth. That's not punishment. That's... Now, let's be real. It's not easy. Discipline means saying no when your body, your feelings, your friends, even society says yes. Discipline means choosing the uncomfortable thing today so that tomorrow becomes easier. But here's the secret. The pain of discipline is temporary. The pain of regret is permanent. That's the trade-off. Let's make it practical. Say you want financial freedom. Everybody does. You know what that really means? It means financial discipline. It means budgeting. It means saying no to buying every shiny thing that catches your eye. It means saving, investing, delaying gratification. And yes, in the short term, that might feel restrictive. Years. But years down the road, when you've got money working for you, instead of you working for money, when you can retire early, travel where you want, give generously, that's freedom. But it only comes from discipline. Take health. You want the freedom to move, to be strong, to live long. That doesn't happen by accident. That's the result of disciplined eating, disciplined exercise, disciplined rest. The freedom to enjoy your body later in life comes from the discipline of taking care of it now. Or think about relationships. You want the freedom of a strong, lasting marriage. That requires discipline too. Discipline in how you communicate, discipline in how you control your temper, discipline in staying faithful, in showing up with consistency. Love without discipline turns to chaos. Every area of life proves the same principle. Discipline is the price of freedom. There's no shortcut. There's no hack. You can't outsource it. You can't fake it. You have to live it. Let me use something powerful. Discipline doesn't make your life smaller. It makes your life bigger. People think discipline means living a boring life. No. Weakest. Discipline gives you opportunities you couldn't touch without it. A disciplined musician gets to play concerts. A disciplined writer gets to publish books. A disciplined entrepreneur, a business that changes lives. Without discipline, you're locked out of those doors. With it, you unlock them. Here's another angle. Discipline gives you peace of mind. When you live without discipline, you're constantly stressed, anxious, scrambling to catch up. You're late on deadlines, behind on bills, out of shape, out of order. But when you live with discipline, you may be tired sometimes, but you're not chaotic. You sleep better knowing you put in the work. You walk taller knowing you didn't let yourself down. That peace, that's freedom too. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but I don't have discipline. I've tried before and failed. Let me encourage you. Discipline is not something you're born with. It's something you build. It's like a muscle. You don't walk into the gym on day one and bench 300 pounds. You start small, and as you show up, as you with discipline, same with discipline. Start small. Keep promises to yourself. Build momentum. Over time, you'll shock yourself at how strong you've become. And don't fall into the trap of thinking discipline means never slipping up. No. Discipline means you keep coming back. Discipline means even when you fall, you don't stay down. You reset. You keep going. That persistence, that's where the power is. Let me leave you with this thought. Imagine two versions of yourself 10 years from now. One version lived by excuses, justified everything, avoided discipline. That version is tired, frustrated, maybe sick, definitely unfulfilled. The other version lived by action, killed the excuses, embraced discipline. That version is free. Free financially, free physically, free emotionally, free spiritually. That version is walking in purpose, confident, strong, fulfilled. Yields, here's the quest version do you want to be, and what are you willing to do today to make sure you become that version? Because at the end of the day, discipline is freedom. The world will keep trying to sell you shortcuts, hacks, easy ways out. Don't buy it. Buy into discipline. Because discipline will never cheat you. Discipline will never betray you. Discipline will pay you back with a life of freedom that excuses and justification could never give. So remember this as you walk out of here. The chains of discipline weigh ounces. The chains of regret weigh tons. Choose wisely. Let me tell you something straight up. The only thing standing, the life you want, is not the economy. It's not your background. It's not your family. It's not even your boss. It's your excuses. Excuses are the invisible chains that keep people locked up in average lives. Excuses are comfortable. Excuses are easy. Excuses are the stories you tell yourself so you can feel better about what not doing you need to do. And if you don't kill your excuses, they will kill your potential. Now, the first thing you've got to understand is this: excuses are not the truth. Excuses are comfortable lies. They make sense in the moment, but when you zoom out and look at your life, you realize all they ever did was rob you. Excuses let you off the hook in the short term, but they handcuff you in the long term. Think about it. How many times have you said, because I don't have the time, but then binge 3 hours of Netflix? Or I don't have the money, while you're spending on things that give you no return. Or I'm not ready yet, even though you've been saying that for 5 years. Excuses shrink your life until your dreams can't even fit inside it anymore. And here's the tricky part. Excuses usually carry just enough truth to sound believable. You might really not have a lot of money. You might really be busy. You might really have been hurt in the past. But here's the question. Are those facts reasons to stop or challenges to overcome? C. The fact describes where you are. The excuse decides where you stay. The greatest people who ever lived had more excuses than you and I combined. Nelson Mandela had an excuse, 27 years in prison. He didn't take it. Oprah had an excuse: poverty, abuse, discrimination. She didn't take it. Thomas Edison had an excuse: 1,000 failed attempts at inventing the light bulb. He didn't take it. Every excuse you think you've got, somebody else had it worse, and they acted anyway. That leads me to the second truth: you've got to embrace action beats justification every single time. See, after excuses come justifications. We get slick with it. We don't just say, can't. We say, well, now isn't the right time. I'm still preparing. I'm still researching. I'm just waiting until I feel ready. And it sounds smart. It feels responsible. But at the end of the day, it's just procrastination in a suit and tie. Listen to me. Your life doesn't change because of what you intend to do. It changes because of what you actually do. You can think about it. You can pray about it. You can talk about it. You can vision board it, but until you take action, nothing moves. The space between knowing and doing is where dreams go to die. And I'll tell you why most people don't act: because action exposes you. When you act, you might fail. When you act, people might criticize. When you act, you risk finding out that it's harder than you thought. But here's the flea side: when you act, you might succeed. When you act, you learn. When you act, you get better. And most importantly, when you act, you move closer to your goals. Philosophers call it the intention-behavior gap, the space between what we plan and what we actually do. Most people live their whole lives in that gap. But nothing great was ever built in theory. Airplanes didn't fly because the Wright brothers talked about it. They flew because the Wright brothers acted. Electricity didn't light up homes because Edison thought about it. It lit up because Edison kept trying and failing and trying again. The lesson is simple. Clarity doesn't come before action. Clarity comes because of action. You don't get confidence and then move. You move, and that builds confidence. You don't wait for the perfect time. You make the time perfect by acting in it. Now, let's be clear. Action without discipline is just movement without direction. That's why the third truth matters. Discipline is freedom. Now, I know that sounds backwards. Most people hear discipline and think restriction. Discipline sounds like saying no. Discipline sounds like hard work. But discipline isn't your enemy. Discipline is the key that unlocks real freedom. Let me explain. The person who eats whatever they feel like might think they're free. But years later, when they're battling health problems, that so-called freedom has turned into chains. The person who spends every dollar they get might feel free in the moment, but when bills pile up and emergencies come, they realize they were never free at all. Lack of discipline feels like freedom today, but steals freedom tomorrow. Discipline feels like work today, but gives you freedom tomorrow. Every great success story is built on discipline. Michael Jordan didn't become the best by practicing only when he felt like it. He became the best by showing up every day, first in the gym, last to leave. Oprah didn't build her empire by waiting for inspiration to strike. She built it by showing up with consistency, day after day, no matter what. Discipline is the bridge between your vision and your reality. Psychologically, here's what discipline really does. It builds trust with yourself. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, waking up when you said you would, finishing the work you committed to, sticking to the habits you set, you prove to yourself that you can be counted on. And that builds confidence. That builds peace. You stop negotiating with your weaknesses. You stop doubting your own word. And that is real freedom. The freedom of knowing, I can rely on me. Now, discipline doesn't mean perfection. Discipline doesn't mean you never slip up. Discipline means even when you slip, you get back on track. Discipline means you value your future more than your feelings. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect in action. And here's the thing, the chains of discipline weigh ounces, but the chains of regret weigh tons. The pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret will follow you for life. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with a choice. You can keep your excuses and live small. You can keep justifying and keep waiting. And you can act and you can build the discipline that gives you freedom. The life you want is not waiting on the world to change. It's waiting on you to kill your excuses, take bold action, and embrace the discipline that will set you free. I want you to imagine yourself 10 years from now. Picture two versions of you. One version kept the excuses, kept justifying, avoided discipline. That version is tired, broke, frustrated, maybe sick, definitely unfulfilled. The other version acted. The other version built discipline. The other version killed the excuses. That version is free, financially, physically, emotionally, spiritually. That version is walking in purpose. Now here's the question, which version do you want to be? What are you willing to do today to make sure you become that version? Because at the end of the day, this isn't about motivation. It isn't about hype. It isn't about fancy words. It's about choices. You are one choice away from a different life. One choice to stop lying to yourself with excuses. One choice to stop hiding behind justifications. One choice to step into discipline and therefore step into freedom. So, let me leave you with this. Excuses are comfortable lies. Action beats justification. And discipline is freedom. Kill your excuses before they kill your potential. Because if you want a life without limits, you've got to first master the limits you set for yourself. Your future is waiting, but it won't wait forever. Stop talking. Start moving. Kill your excuses, because your destiny depends on it.